Hello everyone, I talk about if the United States practices isolationism. A U.S. Department of Defense official has halted the British aircraft carrier's mission to the Asia-Pacific. Also, the tables have turned, now it's America's turn to steal China's minerals. Reuters revealed that American buyers are laundering the origin of goods, having bought 3,800 tons of antimony from China. Recently, the U.S. and Vietnam reached a trade agreement, but the U.S. is imposing a 20% import tariff on Vietnamese products. But if products with laundered origins from other countries are shipped to the U.S. via Vietnam, a 40% tariff will be imposed. As soon as the news broke, Taiwan's pro-green media got excited, mocking China for laundering the origin of its exports to avoid U.S. tariffs. However, they ignored the other side laundering origins as well. China is one of the world's major mineral exporters and currently dominates the supply of antimony, gallium, and rhenium. These metals are used in telecommunications, semiconductors, and military fields. After the U.S. imposed a chip embargo on China, since last December, restricted mineral exports to the U.S. Reuters reported on July 9 that despite the current Chinese ban, a large amount of Chinese antimony products were still smuggled back into the U.S. via Thailand and Mexico from last December to this April. Reuters, by reviewing shipping and customs import-export records, pointed out that in these 5 months, the U.S. imported as much as 3,834 tons of antimony oxide from Thailand and Mexico. The imports during these 5 months exceeded the total amount imported through these two countries in the previous 3 years combined. As for the raw materials of antimony, last year Thailand and Mexico imported more antimony metal raw materials from China than in 2023, making them two of China's top 3 export markets for antimony metal raw materials. Thailand and Mexico also have antimony processing and smelting plants, so it is expected that they import raw materials from China for further processing, and then produce antimony oxide to export to the United States. The report quoted senior executives from American companies saying that in recent months, their companies have obtained minerals that are restricted by China's export ban. Before these minerals arrive in the United States, they first land in a third country, which means the U.S. is using country of origin laundering to obtain mineral products that China has banned from export. Parker, the CEO of a U.S. high-energy company, said that his agent in China obtains mineral raw materials from Chinese producers, then uses shipping companies to put fake labels on them and ships them to other Asian countries. His company obtained 200 kilograms of gallium products in a single month through this method. He also said that he originally wanted to acquire 500 kilograms of these products, but because of the risks involved, Chinese logistics companies are extremely cautious. The report emphasized that some Chinese officials are also aware that these goods destined for the United States are being transshipped through third countries. In May, China's Ministry of Commerce stated that some overseas entities are colluding with domestic criminals to evade export bans. They stressed that prohibiting such exports is a matter of national security. In addition, at the Ministry of Commerce press conference held on July 10, spokesperson He Jianxian responded to questions about whether the Chinese government has already taken relevant measures to crack down on the smuggling of critical minerals for export. He Jianxian said that strategic minerals like antimony and gallium clearly have the characteristics of dual-use items for both military and civilian purposes, and that imposing export controls on them is in line with international practice. China is firmly committed to preventing the illegal outflow of these controlled items. In May of this year, the Office of the National Export Control Work Coordination Mechanism already launched a special operation to crack down on the smuggling and export of strategic minerals. At the same time, as a responsible major country, China will also fully consider the legitimate civilian demand for these strategic minerals from other countries, review relevant export license applications in accordance with laws and regulations, and approve compliant applications. It can be expected that after the Reuters report, China will crack down even harder on these Chinese minerals being laundered through other countries to flow to the United States without regulation. Just think about it, many American military-industrial companies have already been sanctioned by China, so how could China possibly agree to export controlled dual-use items to these military companies? And while the pro-green camp in Taiwan loves to talk about the issue of origin laundering, soon Taiwan's military and public enterprises will have to look for channels to launder the origin of goods just to buy key materials produced in mainland China. On July 9, the Ministry of Commerce issued a bulletin listing 8 Taiwan-based entities involved in the military industry on the export control list. Zhang Xinan, a special commentator for Xinhua Satellite TV's Straight News, said that on the military level, although a single export control order cannot immediately weaken the current combat power of the Taiwanese military, its long-term impact will be extremely significant. First, this move by the mainland suppresses Taiwan's potential to further improve its independent military capabilities. In recent years, Taiwan has been actively developing so-called indigenous defense forces, attempting to produce missiles, submarines, drones, and so on by itself. Taiwan's core military-industrial enterprises are choked off by the mainland in raw materials and technology supply. This may delay or halt multiple projects, causing a serious bottleneck in making Taiwan's military industry more self-sufficient. In the medium to long term, Taiwan's military modernization will slow significantly, making it difficult for its combat readiness to reach a higher level. Taiwan's military industry's dependence on mainland supply chains is an open secret. Take drones, key asymmetric warfare equipment Taiwan highly values. Some Taiwanese manufacturers admit using non-mainland components would increase costs 3 to 4 times. If they really had to completely avoid using mainland parts, some substitutes could even be 20 times more expensive. Hanxiang Aerospace, Taiwan's leading drone manufacturer and the top name on the export control list, has previously stated that it would be extremely difficult to completely bypass the mainland supply chain. There's also the Haikou-class submarine, a project the DPP has been fixated on as a symbol of Taiwan-made submarines, which is being built by CSBC Corporation. This company is also prominently listed in the latest mainland export ban. Although CSBC claims its supply chain mainly relies on Europe and the US, reports indicate it still needs to source key raw materials through the mainland, such as special steel, composite alloy materials, and electronic components. If the mainland strictly controls related exports, the subsequent mass production plants for the Haikou-class submarines will inevitably see costs rise and may even face serious delays. This mainland move is a precision strike at Taiwan's military-industrial nerve center, restricting its future development space. Wielding the supply chain as a weapon, this bloodless strategic suppression is pushed to its limits. Secondly, this approach will also weaken Taiwan's military sustained combat capability. If Taiwan's domestic weapons development is delayed due to supply chain disruptions, it will inevitably become even more dependent on American-made arms. But this very dependence is fraught with hidden dangers. Once China initiates relevant sanctions, the logistics support for American weapons that rely on Chinese materials will also come to a halt. Moreover, if the Taiwanese military's wartime munitions logistics system is heavily dependent on American supplies, then once the island of Taiwan is blockaded, the military's ability to keep operating will inevitably collapse. This choke point risk in the logistics supply chain is undoubtedly a sword hanging over the head of the Taiwanese military. The mainland doesn't need to engage in direct confrontation. It can dismantle the key supporting structures of Taiwan's defense system, leaving it in an awkward position where it can't fight but also can't be defeated. To sum up, first, the fact that American companies have to smuggle Chinese ladders through Mexico and Thailand, disguising their origin, proves that they have no alternative supply channels. Second, China has sanctioned 8 Taiwanese military and public enterprises, and all other companies' dual-use items are also subject to strict registration systems. It's extremely difficult for Taiwanese military and public enterprises to disguise the origin of their products, and importing minerals from China is also very challenging. In the future, they may face supply shortages. The US has played its tricks before, but now China is responding in kind. Restricting the supply of key minerals to Taiwan has become perfectly reasonable. In the past, when something happened in Taiwan, they could turn to the US and mainland China for help, but now with Trump taking an isolationist approach, he doesn't seem very interested in Taiwan's fate. Kirby has served as the US Deputy Secretary of Defense for Policy since March this year, making him the third-ranking official at the Pentagon. Kirby has always advocated for American isolationism and is a staunch supporter of the America First agenda. On July 8, Politico published an article stating that since taking office, Kirby has been in the spotlight in Washington as his series of rapid actions have caught White House officials off guard. In less than 4 months, Kirby's success has angered almost everyone within the government, including US allies such as Ukraine, Japan, Australia, and the United Kingdom. In June of this year, a team from the UK Ministry of Defence visited the US Department of Defence to meet with Kirby and other Pentagon officials. When the British delegation mentioned that the UK had decided to send an aircraft carrier to Asia for a routine deployment, Kirby rudely interrupted and asked the British representative, "Are you going to recall the carrier now, or are you still planning to send it this time? Because we don't want you there." According to an informed source, the British team sitting across the table was extremely shocked, because Kirby was basically saying, "Britain, you have no right to interfere in the Indo-Pacific region." Another person familiar with the meeting also confirmed this account. The report said that Kirby has been ahead of the Trump administration on several major foreign policy decisions. On June 11th, the U.S. Department of Defense announced that it had officially begun a reassessment of the trilateral security partnership signed during former President Biden's administration between the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, known as AUKUS. The report said that this matter was also decided by Kirby, and it caught senior officials at the U.S. State Department and the White House National Security Council by surprise. A State Department official said that this incident seemed to highlight a lack of coordination. In addition, the recent incident where the U.S. Department of Defense halted aid to Ukraine due to insufficient weapons stockpiles also had Kirby's involvement behind the scenes. In early July, the U.S. Department of Defense announced that, out of concern for the country's own weapon stockpiles running too low, they had stopped shipping certain air defense missiles and other precision-guided weapons to Ukraine. This was another decision facilitated by Kirby, which caught many White House officials and members of Congress off guard. Later, Trump said he would revoke this decision, while also claiming he didn't know who had approved it. Kirby's actions gave people the impression that the Department of Defense officials were not aligned with Trump's decisions. But is that really the case? Who can say for sure that the Pentagon's suspension of aid to Ukraine due to low weapons stockpiles wasn't actually a tactic by Trump to put pressure on Zelensky? Besides, Trump now wants to ease tensions with China and pursue an isolationist path. If Kirby was told to halt the British aircraft carrier's deployment to the Asia-Pacific, why would there be any need to inform members of Congress in advance? If Kirby were really going against Trump, he probably would have been fired a long time ago.